All right. Hope I'm coming through nice and clear on the screen. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second session of KeyShot World 2021. I hope you guys are all excited for this one today. This sketch to shelf presentation is a great session to attend, whether you are a brand new KeyShot user or someone with a lot of experience. We'll be exploring KeyShot's presence throughout the entirety of the product development process. So we're going to touch on a lot of KeyShot features, but more importantly, the value that those provide to you guys in your workflow. Before we get started, my name is Brooke Harrington. I'm a product designer and creative specialist here at Luxion. I focus a lot on being the voice of our users, improving the overall experience inside KeyShot, and building that community that we have through our social media, forums, Instagram, whatever that might be. So if you want to get in touch with me directly, you can find my contact info up on the screen for social media and such on the left. And then if you're looking for general KeyShot info, that is all there on the right. And you might recognize my voice if you watch our KeyShot quick tips and tutorials on YouTube. If not, I think you're missing out. So definitely go check those out on our YouTube channel and our Instagram and everything else KeyShot related. There's some great content there. And then real quick, just some specs on this computer I'm working with. This is an incredibly powerful machine from Main Gear. I am working with an NVIDIA RTX A6000 on here, and this is just an absolute beast of a GPU, and KeyShot runs great on this. What's really cool is that if you guys stick around throughout KeyShot World this year, we are doing a giveaway at the end of the day, Thursday, where you can actually win an NVIDIA RTX A6000 for yourself. So make sure you attend all the way through that full day to the end of that last session. All right, so sketch to shelf. That's taking something that was just an idea, a concept, all the way to a marketable product on a shelf, ready to be in a consumer's hands. But why do we need KeyShot for that? I mean, I think we all know you'll get some amazing imagery and animations. Sure, that's what KeyShot's known for, but what else can KeyShot provide? Why might we use KeyShot during the CAD modeling phase? How does KeyShot fit in with CMF design? What assets can you create for your website? There are a lot of questions like this that come up from our users who are trying to integrate KeyShot into their workflow in a way that is deeper than just product visualization. So these are great questions, and we are going to answer a lot of them today. Our creative team here at Luxion, we took the time to create this helmet concept project called Envoy. We brought it from the very beginning stages with just sketching all the way to final marketing assets, kind of underneath this whole sketch to shelf idea. And we did this to better illustrate how you all can implement KeyShot at multiple points throughout the design process. So you'll see a lot of helmet imagery in this presentation, and that's why. It's just to give a clearer picture of what it's like to go from start to finish with KeyShot. And I also want to note just real quick that the video content that you'll see in this presentation, it might come across on your end with a little bit of a lag, and that's just due to the fact that we're doing this remotely over Zoom. But hopefully next year, 2022, we can all see each other in person again. But I will encourage you all to actually check out our webpage that we put together that is specifically dedicated to this project. So if you want to take a look at this imagery on your own time, you can visit keyshot.com/envoy. This page here is it's full of example imagery and assets, and there are plenty of KeyShot files that you can download. Most of what I will be talking about in this presentation, you can find on there. So if you want to explore the scenes yourself, you can definitely do that. And that's really the purpose of this project, is to give you guys a full overview of everything KeyShot. All right, so let's just back up just a little bit. So the typical development process, what does that look like, right? Well, big picture, it's something like conceptualize, model, visualize. But within those phases, you'll get into the details of the process, and that's where you'll find KeyShot. So that's things like our ideation tools, our CMF solutions, of course, our photoreal imagery, and lastly, interactive assets that you might want to put up on a website or such. And as I go through this, you might see a lot of overlap with the features I'm mentioning. That's just because there are many ways to make use of KeyShot. But the point that I want to really get across is that KeyShot really is more than just amazing rendering software. It's a problem-solving tool that will give you a faster workflow and tighter integration throughout the whole thing. All right, let's jump into ideation tools first. So naturally, of course, you put pen to paper and your design has come to life. Now you need to take it into your CAD program and just model the heck out of it, right? So this is where KeyShot's plugin support is going to be key. So whether you're in SolidWorks, Fusion 360, 3ds Max, grab our plugin and take advantage of live linking. Like, live linking is quite literally a click of a button and your CAD model and your KeyShot model are linked. So changes that you make in your CAD program will be reflected in KeyShot. And this is what's really going to elevate your workflow. So imagine you've created your CAD model, right? And you've used the plugin to link it to KeyShot. Now you're working side by side with the two. You've got a great visual representation going on there. You're in KeyShot, you're adding your textures and your materials, but you're like, oh no, I actually need to go back and change this tolerance on my part, right? Well, because of live linking, that is going to be really easy. You can jump back to your CAD program, make that update, send it to KeyShot, and you'll see that reflected in KeyShot, but all those materials, textures, environments, all of that will still be maintained. Just to put it simply, it really is just less time loading and more time creating. And then on top of that, there's also this added benefit of seeing your model inside KeyShot, where you do get to see like proper lighting and how the environment might interact with your surfaces. That's really something you can't achieve in most CAD programs. So it's the plugin support plus the live linking that will allow for a quicker understanding of how your changes affect the form. And then that kind of takes us into another ideation tool, and that is like this ability to bounce between KeyShot and sketching. It's pretty common for designers to want to like sketch over a base rendering of a digital model. And that gives them this freedom, like in terms of lighting and environmental factors that might otherwise take a lot of time to convey with traditional sketching. So we'll see a lot of users who will put a rough rendering or maybe even just a clay model underneath and start sketching on top of that. And during our process, we did this for parts of our Envoy project as we went kind of back and forth between different design ideas. It was really nice having those accurate shadows and the highlights underneath our sketch. That way we didn't have to do that by hand, right? And then any changes that we did want to make with our CAD model, those were exceptionally easy to validate because of the live linking. We're able to see how that new surface change interacted with our environment. Overall, it became this nice and intuitive cycle between ideation, CAD, and KeyShot. So in terms of speeding up the review process for surface changes or even entirely new design features, this is just another excellent case, again, for incorporating KeyShot into that early concept development phase. All right, great. So at this point, we have our model built, and now we are ready to assess the color, material, and finish. And this is a really important step in ensuring that your product fits well with your branding. And it's one that requires really great communication internally amongst your CMF designers or industrial designers, but also externally with your stakeholders. So a tool that will just overall help tighten up that workflow internally is the configurator. This is a separate add-on that you can purchase for KeyShot under KeyShot Web, and then allows you to create presentation style, model, and material variations of your scene. And then these can be shared in a web browser or with our desktop app, which is KeyShot Viewer. And if you look at this video here, you can see just how easily I'm able to click through all of these different colorways and camera views within this presentation layout. It really is like so much easier to use this than try to present inside KeyShot. And the reason I want to highlight it specifically under the CMF phase is because it takes advantage of the multi-materials and the model sets in your scene. And it presents them, like I've said, in this very shareable way that is really easy for anyone to click through. So in our case, with the helmet project that we were doing, we were looking to get approval on some colorways and material variations, but we didn't want to manually output all of those renderings to convey those ideas because one, that requires a lot of setup inside KeyShot, and two, it takes a long time to render all those out. Plus, we were sharing this file with someone who didn't have any KeyShot experience, so giving them a KeyShot package file and expect them to navigate KeyShot just wasn't really an option. So instead, we used the configurator wizard inside KeyShot, and that allowed us to output this really nice, like presentation friendly setup of our scene that you're seeing right here. And I think something also I've experienced due to COVID-19, something that we all experience, is navigating this like remote work situation. And in working in a team, you're constantly doing these review sessions, right? Where ideally you're making design decisions in person. You're touching real materials and textures, you're holding things in your hands. That's not really the world that we live in anymore. Like things are definitely going more digital. Shipping physical samples to stakeholders can be costly and time consuming. And so that's really where you'll find in your workflow the accuracy of the textures in KeyShot, plus the ease of sharing those with a configurator, really helpful. And actually new in KeyShot 10.2 is this layout mode, touch-friendly layout mode for a more minimal, modern configurator. Right now, this is just available inside KeyShot when you're using presentation mode, but I think you'll find that it is refreshed and actually less invasive on your product space. So it's definitely something to check out in 10.2. And with that, if you're curious about learning more about the configurator, because I know this is kind of a big feature, Mike James is going to do an awesome presentation after mine today. It's from 2 to 3. He's kind of like the pro configurator user, so he'll be covering all the ways in which you can use it and implement it in your workflow. That's going to be a great session. You'll definitely want to attend that one. And I also want to add that the configurator is a feature that is really helpful internally, but it will also find its way into other areas of your process, like later on, which is something that I'll be touching on in this presentation too. All right, so since we're on the topic of design reviews and decision making, KeyVR is a really immersive option, and it's another great one for a remote work situation. So this is a tool that is another KeyShot add-on, but it really brings a whole new level to the creative process. So with virtual reality, you're able to view your model in an interactive environment with support, where we support multi-materials, cameras, model sets. You can find all of it in there, and you can really explore a product space and what your product will actually look like in that space. But I think most interestingly is the fact that now you can do all of this collaboratively with KeyVR Connect. So coming June 17th, so just a little bit later this week, is a new KeyVR update that brings the ability to connect virtually with your team in a shared scene. That means that you guys can all jump in and explore your model together from anywhere. Any changes that are made by someone in the scene, they can be viewed by everybody. So like whether, like you see in this video here, so whether that's someone changing the material on a helmet or changing an entire model set, everyone can see it, walk around it, rotate it. KeyVR is just a really awesome way to view your product like right in front of you. And it's also another feature that will that you'll be able to implement down the line in your workflow too. It's pretty versatile, and it's also very fun. And I think that's what engages customers and users in KeyVR. All right, on to another CMF solution, and that is the incredible 3MF support that KeyShot offers. So if you're unfamiliar with the 3MF file type, it's an alternative to traditional 3D printing file types. That's like STL or OBJ, but 3MF actually offers support for colors, textures, displacement maps. Most of everything that you create in KeyShot can be printed out fully colored and fully textured on a compatible printer. That's something like the Stratasys J55 or one of their J8 series 3D printers. So you can see in the comparison images that I have up here, the left being in KeyShot and the right being the print, that the label was captured in that print and that speckled plastic was captured. It really is incredible. And so we took advantage of this for our Envoy project, of course. We printed out several variations of our helmet, all of those with different materials and some different textures. We're actually able to hold it in our hands, which was really fun. So practically overnight, you can print out 5 different models with different materials and textures and really engage in that decision-making process, because now it's physically right in front of you and in your hands. And rapid prototyping multiple textures or colors like this would otherwise take a really long time and be quite expensive. Not to mention that this 3MF export option, if you have a printer in-house, actually does reduce the risk of intellectual property loss, which is another benefit of this export feature as well. And I think in terms of CMF design in general, it really is a game changer. Like, I can't stress enough how amazing it is to see your KeyShot model printed like this. And if you're familiar with traditional prototyping, where you're carving it by hand, or it's a clay model, like that takes weeks. And so applying this method to your workflow instead will allow that CMF design phase to start sooner, which in the end really just means your product gets to market faster. And now I would love to go into more detail about this, but we actually have a full presentation Thursday morning with Kareem Merchant and Stratasys themselves, where they will go in way more depth about the export functions. That's like best practices and how to set that up in KeyShot, and a little bit more about the benefits that that's going to provide. So that'll be a good one. Don't miss it. I will definitely be there. All right, now we're still underneath the CMF design phase at this point, right? But at this point, we've kind of nailed our materials right with the help of the configurator, KeyVR, that 3MF export feature. And now we need to communicate our material, color, and finish choices with exact precision to our designers and our manufacturers. And this is a critical step. There's really no room for misinterpretation or ambiguity in our design. So it makes a lot of sense to be able to output a CMF document directly from KeyShot. We're able to capture and like curate your material library and carry that across project to project. So I'm excited to say that this feature will be coming to KeyShot soon, and this is kind of a little bit of a sneak peek. The CMF documentation tool, it will be right inside KeyShot. So you'll be able to input data about your materials. So it's like color, finish, the vendor, a reference image. You can put all of that straight into your material library or into any individual scene. And then this can be outputted into a few different file types, and that'll be complete with a rendering of your model, the callouts that point to parts or materials, and a table at the bottom that will outline the material information for each of those callouts. And this slide here is an example of what that'll look like in KeyShot. For this Envoy project, we added all of our information in for our materials, and then along with sending out a batch of renderings, we also just, it was like a click of a button, we were able to output this document with it. And I think this is probably going to be one of the more anticipated KeyShot features in terms of just streamlining company workflows. Because right now, most of the CMF design phase and documentation process is done in programs outside of KeyShot, which is just extra time and resources, right? So overall, just make it more efficient to be able to capture that information in KeyShot. And I think that'll make this CMF, investing in this for your CMF design phase will be worthwhile. So stay updated with us on our releases for this and our social media accounts. You can find out when this is happening and make sure you don't miss it. All right, so photoreal imagery. This is what KeyShot is known for. But how does this amazing visualization software really help you in your workflow? It might seem obvious, right? Because you're getting these images and these animations for your marketing materials that are so real that it fools everybody. Okay, sure, yes, but let's break it down a little bit further. So first off, KeyShot as purely something that is just for rendering is in itself very easy and very fast. The learning curve is relatively low, so you can get your team set up fairly quickly inside KeyShot. And it was kind of, found on this concept of being as simple as drag and drop. That way, someone without much knowledge of the program, or even without any background at all in visualization or photography, they can still open KeyShot and like intuitively understand that you're dragging and dropping and sort of like painting your model with that rich library of materials. And we kind of did the same with animations. So animations are just as easy, right? Like you have the animation wizard. You can get rotation, translation, camera animations, all of those with just a few clicks to set up in the wizard. And doing that provides a really good base understanding of how animation works in KeyShot. So what I mean is your team will be able to output some great looking stuff right away. But of course, with just a little more knowledge, a little more creativity, you can elevate those visuals a ton. And I mentioned that the configurator would find its way back, and it did, right? The image here is the render output window in KeyShot. And I have that configurator tab selected. Now, this is one of the main reasons I'll recommend the configurator. We know it's fantastic for internal review, right? That's what we went over before under the CMF solutions phase with all that. But perhaps what I think might be overlooked is the fact that you can output everything from that configurator. I mean, if you look at the number of images that I have here, that's 588 images to be rendered from my material variations, my model variations, and my studios. And I was able to get all of my different colorways and model sets out with each different camera angle and environment. It is so worth it to integrate the configurator in your workflow from the very beginning, because that's when you can use it to make design decisions But as you can see later on, as you narrow down those design decisions and you start creating your marketing assets, you can output those from that same configurator setup. All right, so all this talk about photoreal imagery, right? But it really wouldn't be anything if KeyShot wasn't so accurate. Lighting and textures, like we've gotten to this point where the digital twin of your product can be used in place of like the actual final production model. And I'm talking about like in-person photography, right? Like there are ways to eliminate that entirely from your workflow, and that is by rendering in KeyShot. I mean, truly, you can generate such photorealistic images in KeyShot that you can actually skip the whole photo shoot. And skipping that means you don't have to wait for your final production model, which means you can get started on your marketing material sooner. And again, all of that just means your product can get out there faster. And creating those marketing assets in traditional ways comes at a much higher cost. And it's a cost because you have to, gather everyone in person, hope that you nail your nice product shots, or else you might have to coordinate another shoot. And that right there is another reason to do all of this inside KeyShot. It's because it's reliable and it's reproducible. It's kind of like doing photography with a giant undo button, right? Like you can always jump back into your scene and tweak the lighting a bit or the camera angle. Or you could even revisit a scene and like use it for your next season's launch or next product launch, tweak it a bit. I think that's what makes it actually pretty fun to work inside KeyShot. Because you can kind of create these like endless iterations on your marketing assets because it's just like that easy to do. So like changing an entire studio setup to get a different lighting effect is very easy. And of course, so we found this to be fantastic for this Envoy project because it really is just a concept. Like we don't have a final production model, so we needed to use KeyShot to completely sell the product. And whether we were creating a more stylized look or a photoreal look, we had the flexibility there to go with like any mood that we wanted. And it's really like once you get those realistic textures in there, it's just a matter of playing with other components in KeyShot to try and make your vision come to life, right? And I'm just saying all of this, doing all of this digitally inside KeyShot, it gives you this reliability and this reproducibility that we've never really had with in-person photography. All right, let's get into some interactive assets that you can generate straight out of KeyShot. And I think something that's really appealing about interactivity on a website or in a store is that it feels new and it feels very intentional and it helps convey the story in a fun and exciting way for your customers. So one example is augmented reality, right? And augmented reality, it's been around for some time, but there's now this growing list of use cases for it, and companies and users are really gravitating towards these ideas. So in KeyShot 10, we brought support for AR. So we have this new AR export feature that lets you output both USDZ and GLB, so you can view your products in AR on any mobile device, whether it's Android or iOS. And this is a really unique interactive asset that actually has so much potential. So a simple yet still very compelling example would be exporting your model for customers to view in their home. This could be like a QR code or a little click to view inside your home link next to the purchase page on your website. We actually did this for our Envoy project, and you'll find a click to view in your space option on the mobile version. And then on the website version, you'll find a QR code. And if you want to try that out, you can, of course, head to our website, but I also have a QR code here. So you can give this a shot if you'd like right now. This QR code will detect whether you're on Android or iOS, and it'll give you the correct file. So that'll either be USDZ or GLB. And if you decide to test it, you'll see how this can give someone a chance to actually rotate and scale the product inside their space before they buy it, which to a customer brings a whole other level of validation before the big purchase. And that's just one example, because you could do the same thing, for example, like with an exploded view. Maybe you want to show off the internal components of your product that way. You would create that exploded view in KeyShot, just as always, but export it using our AR export feature. That way, customers could scale that up. They could scale it up potentially really big in their space and actually walk around and see the quality of construction, right, of your product. Really, any scene in KeyShot can be exported to AR, and it's not limited to just something for your customers. There are definitely ways to incorporate this feature into earlier phases of the development process, like for design review. There's just a lot of possibilities, and I'm sure more to come in the future. All right, the next interactive asset that you can definitely take advantage of is KeyShot XR. So these are interactive, swipeable, like rotatable assets that you can deliver across various platforms. It is web ready. Like I said, it's interactive and it's straight out of KeyShot. To be clear, like these are really dynamic. They're 3D rendered visuals that are capable of display on any web browser that supports HTML5. So the content can be interacted with using a mouse or your finger if you're on a touch-enabled device, and it doesn't require a browser plugin to work. So KeyShot will render out the individual images of the KeyShot XR content, the HTML code for integration into any website, and the JavaScript to support the progressive loading of images. So all you do really is just upload that content and you're ready to go, and you get some amazing interactive visuals like this. And there's also a set of instructions that come out as well, so don't worry about that. But what you're looking at right here on the right side of the screen are recorded examples of myself interacting with a few XRs, and they're pretty fun to swipe around with. And they are much more than just 360 or spherical views. You can create an XR from an animation in your scene. And if you look at the second XR, once it comes around, it's the handheld vacuum. That one's actually an exploded view. So it was an animation in KeyShot turned into an XR right inside KeyShot. The shoe in the beginning is a spherical XR, so you can drag that around and view it from every angle. And that last set of speakers right there, that is a standard turntable, one of the options we provide in the XR wizard. But overall, you can see there's just so many possibilities with these. And an XR is, like I've mentioned, it's something you can add to your website. So if you do check out the Envoy website, you'll see it in there. It's something that you could place alongside the purchasing or buy section, right? So your customer can actually see the product from all angles and spin it around, and see that in any color too. Or maybe it's a bigger part of your website to tell the story a bit better, in which you could add like call outs or entire material changes. Like there are standard options, of course, to the XR wizard, but you can get creative really quickly in there. You can go kind of crazy and like I've said, build out animations for that XR. And all of it is finalized with just a few clicks, no coding. So of course, that's just KeyShot making it easy with this one too. And so if that was all intriguing, or if the configurator has sounded intriguing at all, know that those are both part of our KeyShot Web add-on package. So if you want some more information about how to get that, definitely head to our website, keyshot.com/web. But here it is again, mentioning the configurator brings me back to the configurator one more time, which is exciting. I love it. It finds its way into this interactive asset section. Because there are potential use cases externally. So the web configurator output, it works very similarly to the XR output that you'd get, of course, with that package deal with KeyShot Web. This means that you can upload it to your website to show customers or use it as like a point of sale presentation. It can also be, well, it's more than just internal design review tool. It's like a way of showing customers all the product options too. And we've also embedded this one into our keyshot.com/envoy page as an example of what that can look like. And I'm in this video here, I'm scrolling through it. And this is in mobile mode. So you can see it's very easy to click through. So go check out that page when you have a chance, because like I said earlier, it's really full of some awesome information and captures this entire story in one concise and shareable web page. And also definitely go and download those assets on there. There are plenty of KeyShot package files that we put up there that we worked in ourselves to create these. So those will be fun for you guys to play with and test out. All right, so that's basically the summary of Sketch to Shelf with KeyShot, right? That's a summary of our product development process and the ways in which you can use KeyShot's features to streamline your workflow and really make use of KeyShot in more ways than one. Remember, that's like ideation tools like live linking to CMF solutions like 3MF, photoreal imagery for marketing materials, and interactive assets to really pull in and engage that buyer, right? So KeyShot, as we know, is an incredible a piece of rendering software. There's no doubt about that. We are mind blown every day by what our users can create. But what I hope I was able to do in this presentation is intrigue you a little bit more about what else KeyShot can bring. So maybe that was a better understanding of how to include KeyShot's design review tools in your workflow. Or maybe you just realized in this presentation how amazing 3MF support is for 3D printing. Whatever it is, I hope you guys enjoyed this session. I know we covered a lot of KeyShot features here. Some maybe you're not as familiar with as others, but I'm totally open to questions on this, about this content. So I'm going to pass this to Derek Cicero, who's our VP of Product Strategy here. He's going to take some time to read off some of the questions out loud if you guys have them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brooke, for kind of taking us all the way from Sketch to Shelf there. As Brooke mentioned, you can go on the website. I don't know if you want to go ahead and bring up the website again.
Yes.
Keyshot.com/envoy. What we've done is we made it so all of these things are now downloadable for yourself. So people had a lot of questions about how to create these various bits of content. And so you can kind of see there how you can put the QR code in the scan. You can see how the XRs are used, and really see how the end user would see it. But then towards the bottom of the screen, we actually kind of walk through our process again, and you can actually download the KSP, you can download the configurator files, and really kind of explore for yourself, different variations, different concepts. And so this is not only sort of the end use case, but also a very hands-on example that you can explore. As we mentioned, Kareem will be going through some more detail as well on Thursday about some of the detail around things like 3MF and printing. So yeah, I think this is kind of really a nice overview of the whole process. One thing, if you don't mind, Brooke, bringing up KeyShot real quick, sort of showing folks kind of where those export options are. People were asking about the AR export. So USDZ is generally the primary format for the iOS AR tool. Scene Viewer is generally the one for Android that usually uses GLB. What we've added in KeyShot 10.1 is now the ability to do both. So you can export either, as you see there, export to USDZ or USD will go to USDZ directly. Export to GLB or GLTF will go to that. The export to AR actually does both. So if you click on that one, what happens is you will actually go and get the option to save out both a USDZ and a GLB at the same time. One of the things people asked about is Draco compression. So you can see there on the GLB, GLTF. Draco compression is an open source compression algorithm that essentially minimizes the size of GLB files. And so that's a great way to kind of, people were asking, how do I get my file sizes down lower? The Draco compression will do that. Having said that, not everyone will support that. So some people were saying that when they scanned it, they actually got just a GLB download. That's generally because whether or not the Android will support Scene Viewer. So the iOS has done a pretty good job of essentially, once you sort of see that USDZ automatically going into AR. I think on the Android devices, it's a little bit more complex, but the GLB should be able to be loaded if you have that Scene Viewer in your Android operating system. And as you can see in there, there's a series of export options that you'll see, and those will sort of dictate the size. One thing we've added in KeyShot 10.2 under the Tools menu is the ability to do a mesh simplification. So sometimes what you'll run into is the ability within an AR or VR file, the original CAD file is too large to easily go from there. And so that mesh simplification tool will allow you to easily go in and make those meshes simpler for export out to those other formats. So I'm going to go ahead and read through here. One person's asking about the cutaway XR. So the cutaway and the ability to do the animations exists inside of KeyShot Pro, but the XR functionality is what allows you to easily export that into a series of GIFs or GIFs that you could be used on a final website. Some folks were asking about the CMF documentation tool. And so, yeah, we're working on that right now. It's something we're looking at for KeyShot 11. Someone was asking if you can output product dimensions. That's actually not something that we have in the initial cut, but that's something we can definitely look at, is kind of getting out more data around the scale of what you're looking at. One person, I don't know if you, Brooke, can answer, people were talking about the configurator and how it interacts with studios and the ability to not only do material variations, but do some model variations. If you want to speak to that briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I can just show the configurator wizard real quick, where you do have the option of doing material variations as well as model and material variations. Once you set that up, yes, that's correct. You can switch between different models, different materials. And then the benefit of having Studio set up is that's really where you're going to be able to have the option to click through different camera angles. Well, it's camera angles plus everything else in a Studio. But that's like, if I pull up presentation mode, these views down here, these are your studios. So it's very beneficial to set up those alongside a configuration. Great.
Some folks are asking about live linking. If you go to the main KeyShot page and look at the plugins on there, so under resources, downloads plugins, you can get information on where KeyShot has plugins versus where it has just direct import of the various file formats. Going through here, probably want to buy the helmet. I don't blame you. The helmet is very cool. The team did such a good job building this that I also wish to purchase one.
That's fun.
People ask me the QR codes. There's a number of ways to generate QR codes. There's a number of free apps you can get. The way essentially it works is the QR code just needs a URL to link to. So once you have your AR file, you can basically host it on any website, and then in the QR code, trigger loading that URL via the QR code. And so we don't actually generate the QR code inside of KeyShot. We just do the actual image output. But once that's done, you can easily link that to really any URL. Just going through here real quick, see any other questions. I think we've kind of answered them all. As Brooke mentioned, at 2 p.m. today, Mike James from Thomas Burke will be going through more detail. So if you really want to dig into the configurator itself, he's been talking about how they used it with the bike manufacturer Specialized to help make design decisions. So definitely check that out. And then I don't know, Brooke, did you have anything else that you wanted to share with us before we end the session?
I don't think so. Just that I'm excited about the webpage we put together. So you guys can definitely stay up to date with that and keep referencing it. We're going to be kind of using it as a living document. So there's going to be updates on there when new features come out. And the KSPs that we have on there, those KeyShot package files, I really encourage you to take them down and explore them, especially with things like the configurator. It's really helpful to start from one that is already built out. And that's kind of like the idea of this entire project, is to like give you guys a good base understanding of most of these features and how you can incorporate them.
Wonderful. I'm going to take the screen from you here just so I can share our KeyShot World sponsors. So a big thank you, as Brooke mentioned, we're using that A6000 GPU in that studio machine. So big thank you to them. We will be giving away that A6000 on Thursday as our final giveaway. Big thank you to Stratasys, who did a number of the 3D prints for us as part of this project. We'll be talking more about our relationship with Stratasys and 3MF on Thursday as well. Vario, who makes a fantastic headset that we use a lot for KeyVR. And then Render Weekly and Design Burger, which are two fantastic Instagram sites that we work with very closely that are sponsoring us. If you don't already know, please go to the KeyShot Instagram page or follow Render Weekly and Design Burger. And finally, GoPro. Big thank you to GoPro. We're giving away, as I mentioned earlier, that Hero 8 at the end of today's presentation. But I want to thank all of them for helping bring KeyShot World Virtual to the stage, if you will, in 2021. So any parting thoughts for us, Brooke?
Just that I'm excited for the rest of KeyShot World. So I'll be jumping in on these presentations, and hope you guys are too.
Well, thank you again, and we'll see you again today at 2 p.m. Pacific time for our next presentation from Mike James. Thank you all for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.